These days, it's anything but business as usual. That's why working together is more important than ever. AT&T is committed to keeping you connected so you can keep your patients cared for, your customers served, your students inspired, and your employees closer than ever. Our network is resilient. Our people are strong. Our job is to keep your business connected. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do.
Welcome to the Small Business University Online, brought to you by Small Business Expo. We hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy during this time. Thank you to AT&T Business, who is our presenting sponsor. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on our channel within 24 hours. You will receive an email notification when the recording is available. If there are any questions for our presenters, you can post them in the public chat window during the session. Our presenter will get to your questions at the end. And now I'm thrilled to introduce today's webinar presentation with our presenter. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a good day so far. My name's Denise Wilkin, and I'm the president for your HR partner. And our business is providing HR services to small businesses, typically small businesses that don't need their own full-time HR professional, but do need the protections that HR can provide. So I'm here today. My partner is with me, but you can't see him. He will try to respond to some of the questions as we go. And again, as they said, we will have some time at the end to have some questions. And really what I want to do today is just talk about some things for you to think about. A lot of times our small businesses don't really realize the risk they may be putting themselves in by not having some HR protections, and you don't know what you don't know. So the purpose of this presentation is really just to give you some things to think about, and certainly, reach out to us if we can help you. Here's our agenda of what we'll be going through. Again, it's a lot of it's just going to be some discussion and things to think about. Keep in mind that our services are really an a la carte, truly an HR advice and other HR services. We don't perform payroll. We're not insurance brokers. We really do help you with your HR needs. As the questions go, we are based in Texas. However, we have clients all over the US, and laws can vary by state. So if there are questions that we can't ask because of the specific state you're in, we can certainly get your contact information and reach out to you after the fact if you have some questions or concerns. Also on our website, we do have a resource page that has a few links that might help you if you're a small business owner. One of the links I like has a list of laws that apply to you based on the number of employees you have. So as you grow, you can see the laws that might apply to you. So I'll go ahead and get started. I kind of mentioned a minute ago, as a small business owner, what you don't know what you don't know. But what you don't know can hurt you, especially when it comes to owning a business. I think a lot of business owners, when they start their business, they may be a great photographer or a great CPA or a great baker, and they go in business and they're focused on growing their business. They may not realize some of the employment laws that apply to them, even after just having a few employees. So we are there to really try to help the business owner have some protections in place, help them deal with the HR issues so they really can focus on their business. Because one discrimination claim or lawsuit can really devastate a small business. And our goal is to really help prevent you from getting to that point. So some of the did you knows, the list that I have here are things that we've seen some of our small businesses violate these regulations, which is kind of surprising, and sometimes they just don't know. Talking about their pay, you'd be surprised how many businesses I'll see, and they have a big statement in their handbook or policy that says, if you talk about your pay, you're going to get fired. Well, you can't do that. regardless of the size of business that you have. Employees have the right to discuss their pay. Now, I'm not talking about specific contracts, but in general, they have that right. Again, there are things that people may not be aware of. The minimum pay for salaried exempt employees increased January 1. I have a client who wasn't aware of that and has a number of exempt employees and was non-compliant. So that's something that may apply to you. Another thing that we see often is overtime. Now, you may say, hey, I have ADP, or I have Paycom, or I have this great payroll service. That's great. But they may or may not be able to advise you on the best pay practices, especially if you have different types of paid employees, tipped employees and such. But keep in mind, you do need to pay employees overtime, which is time and a half for over 40 hours that they work in a week. For instance, if your pay period is a period of 2 weeks, you can't say, oh, well, I'm going to calculate it after 80 in the 2 weeks. It's truly after 40. So another thing, sometimes people are small business owners will think, well, I can't get rid of this employee. I can't afford to pay unemployment. Well, again, that's where we want to make sure you have those things in place if you do need to let someone go in the unfortunate event. Also, employment requirements for payroll records. I had a client who was only keeping records for their previous year. Well, are specific laws that require you to keep payroll records. So, and there's just a lot of laws that you may or may not be aware of that if you aren't careful, if you don't have the right structure and guidance, you could be putting yourself at risk. The next few slides are, again, I mentioned these are things we just want to kind of put in your head to think about. They may be things you dealt with, they may be things you haven't dealt with, but, and there may be things you haven't thought of, which again, these are some of the common scenarios we have dealt with the small business owner who calls and isn't sure how to handle. And so this first slide, talking about social media, we all know social media nowadays is crazy, and you've all seen stories of people who have posted inappropriate things, lost their jobs. A lot of our small business owners will say, well, my employees have a right to freedom of speech and such, and they do. On social media, they can post what they'd like, but there can be consequences for their actions. You especially want to be sure they're not posting anything negative about you or about one of your employees or one of your clients, worse yet. We've had small business owners who were in a smaller town and one of their employees made a inappropriate comment about one of their clients. And it was very unfortunate because now you potentially have lost the trust of that client. So you want to be sure you have some specific comments in your social media. We also had another client who, an employee on their break, took some pictures of themselves that were inappropriate. This person had partially displayed in their photo where they worked. Again, small town. A few days later, we get a call from someone in the community that happened to see that picture and is wondering why this organization is allowing their employees to post these types of photos on social media. Again, you can have things in your policy that prevent employees from even getting on social media while they're at work and preventing them from making disparaging comments against you or a client or one of their coworkers. So it's important to have these things in place, and also having the right HR advice, even if you do have this type of policy in place. Another scenario, again, a recent client that we had an employee who left and went to work for one of her clients. Well, she did have a non-compete agreement, however, didn't have a confidentiality agreement, didn't have a non-solicitation agreement, did not have an agreement with her client. So even as a business owner, if you have clients that you're hiring, if you have customers that you're hiring, you need to have some protection there where your customers can't then go take one of your employees. Again, I mentioned this client of ours had a non-compete. Her employee files, however, were not in a secure place. So before the employee left, she took her employee file and the signed agreements with her. And the client didn't have a lot of recourse there. So again, these are just things to kind of think about that you want to have in place. Confidentiality in statements are critical because you also, if you're a small business owner, maybe you have some great cutting edge ideas. Having a good confidentiality agreement as you're hiring, even if you're working with independent contractors, is critical because you do not want someone to be able to steal your proprietary information and then go open up shop and be your competitor with your ideas. So those types of just basic agreements are things that we can help you design and implement with your team. Some of our, I often have people say, well, how many employees do I need to have before I have this? Well, if you have 1 or 2 employees, you probably need to go ahead and get started with some of these policies. I'll tell you right now, a couple of clients we have only have 2 employees each, and they're having some employee relation issues that we're dealing with. And again, they're great business owners, they're great CPAs, they're great photographers. They don't know how to handle the employee issues. And with all the laws, with everything that's going on, you really need some good, solid HR advice. Next one. This is probably one of the most common problems you'll face as a business owner. Getting employees to come to work and getting them to come to work on time can be a challenge. So when you have employees, again, that have this issue, you want to have a good attendance policy and a good policy regarding attendance. So if you have someone that's coming in a lot, there are specific questions that you can ask. There are things that you can do. The ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, is something with just 15 employees applies to you. So there are certain conditions that if you have an employee that's calling and they're saying, hey, I have such and such going on, you may need to talk to them about a potential accommodation. Now, an accommodation may or may not be required. However, having a discussion about a consideration on accommodation certainly may be. And you may say, hey, an attendance is an essential function of the job. Yes, it can be. Again, under ADA, though, and the laws have, the case laws have changed a little over the last few years, but attendance may or may not be something that you can accommodate, and it's something that you need to look at. So before you just automatically say, hey, this person keeps calling out because of XXX, we're going to let them go. Let's make sure we're having a conversation about it. Even if you don't have 15 employees, still wise to have discussions about it. I will also tell you that some employers, some businesses like to have a hard and fast 5 absences in X amount of time and they're out. I always advise against having something quite that strict because the employment laws change regularly. They are not cut and dry. If it was something as simple as just reading a law or reading a policy, you wouldn't need HR folks. So you want to be mindful about having a cut and dry, hard and fast 5 absences and you're out. Because in the unemployment world, if their last absence, the reason you let them go is I'm sick, kid's sick, things like that, you're probably not going to win that unemployment claim, even if they've missed 30 days in a year, because I've had that happen. So you need to really be mindful when you're dealing with attendance issues and tardy issues. The last bullet I have about what if the reason they didn't come to work is they were in jail. And you may laugh, but this has actually happened. And one of my clients had an employee who got got put in jail. Spouse calls, says, hey, they won't be in tonight. They had a ticket and such, they won't be in. So this company had basically a no-fault PTO policy, meaning they didn't care why you took PTO. So we applied PTO in that scenario. However, throughout the situation, the employee ended up missing multiple days. And throughout this, we were able to find out, actually, it was brought to our attention that this particular employee had been convicted of a sexual crime with a minor. So this was very concerning, and it came about because another employee came forward and said, hey, this person has been talking to me inappropriately, and I did some digging, found this information out. The company did not have a policy that required employees to disclose convictions. So I do recommend that you look at your policy. Now, I'm not talking about hiring, because some states prevent you from asking about criminal backgrounds when you're in the application process. But once they're an employee, you may want to look at your policies about if someone gets convicted of a crime, of a felony, while they're employed, and their requirements to disclose that. I will tell you, in this scenario, we didn't have that policy. However, the employee missed a significant amount of time. I did advise, I worked with this client, we did dismiss them. And, it was a little bit of a risk. But when we went into unemployment, the unemployment claims, because we were within a certain location of a school, and we now had a sex offender working for us, we did win the unemployment claim. But again, having had a policy would have made it a little more clean when we were fighting that unemployment claim. So again, these are just things to think about as you are growing, as you're building your business. Having some of this HR structure in place can really save you. Next scenario, this one again happened recently with one of our clients, and their policies, they didn't have a good electronic confidentiality policy, and they had allowed their staff to bring in the flash drives because they had older computers and things. Well, they ultimately had to let go of this person due to a layoff. This was pre-COVID. But they did have a layoff, and they weren't concerned because, this employee had been there for years. They just weren't concerned. Well, the employee basically deleted years and years worth of files, and they were left with just a few files, and it was very difficult. We ended up recovering some of the files, but, there wasn't a policy in place. It was very challenging for us to deal with that. So also, if you are allowing people to bring flash drives or other external electronic storage into your business, keep in mind those things can have viruses, and they can definitely cause havoc on your network. So again, these are policies that you may not even think about. Again, you may be thinking, I only have one employee. But as you're growing, you definitely need to look at these types of things, because if that information gets deleted, you could be in trouble. This particular situation, some of the files that were gone, there were some very confidential information regarding some of their clients, such as personal information. So that was a whole nother level of issue we had to deal with. And other laws that apply there. So again, looking at your electronic communication policy, the confidentiality regarding external devices, but also internal, instant messaging within your organization, emails within your organization. We actually had a client that were attorneys, and they did not realize, some of the attorneys that were chatting amongst themselves didn't realize that potential information could be discoverable if they were discussing a client. And there were some not nice things said about this client. So again, these are things that you may not think about, but that we definitely want to take a look at and ensure that you have those things to protect your business. Let's see. So again, those are really, this is a relatively quick presentation, but those are just some of the most common types of things that we've gotten recently with our small businesses. We really want this to be an opportunity for you to think about, for you to maybe look at what you already have. And if you don't have any of the structure in place, it's certainly something that we can look at for you, look at your current policies, look at your current procedures to make sure that you are getting that good structure. As I mentioned, you can have some policies and procedures in place. You may need some good sound advice sometimes in applying those. When you're a small business, the things that you do now set a precedence for later. So if now you're allowing an employee to miss multiple days of work, and then you grow and you get a little bigger, your employees may remember, hey, you let Susie have 10 days off. Why aren't you letting me have 10 days off? So it's important as you grow, kind of setting those precedents, making sure you have good structure to really protect your business. So some of the services that that we can provide, are like I mentioned, some of the HR advice on employee issues, and those can be anything like we discussed. Our biggest projects typically are creating handbooks, policies, procedures. So again, I mentioned a couple of our clients only having 2 employees, and they now have handbooks and they have some good policies in place so that they are helping protect their business. But with COVID, the last few months, and I didn't include a lot of COVID stuff in our presentation today because I know everyone has been inundated with it. Certainly we have. It's with new work at home policies that we've created, new pandemic policies that we've created, and now focusing on returning to work, following the OSHA guidelines, all of that guidance. Those are all things that we can help you with, creating and making sure you're staying compliant and having a nice, safe work environment. But certainly those things can be crucial for your business, to protect your business. Another thing, creating job descriptions is really important. Salary structure, pay analysis are also things that we can do. I will go back to job descriptions though. I think sometimes companies underestimate the value of having a job description, and I'll tell you why. When you get to a point where you have, especially if you have someone who's not performing the way they need to or not completing some specific job requirements, having a good job description, especially when you onboard an employee where they have a list of these are the essential functions, they agree that they can complete those essential functions with or without an accommodation, and then you start having problems, this is something really great to reference. I mentioned ADA earlier. A job description is critical if you have an ADA situation. Again, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. Should you have an employee that is diagnosed with some sort of illness that potentially falls under the ADA, that is where when you have a job description, you're working with that employee, working with their medical provider to say, what can they do? What can they not do? Can we provide an accommodation or not? Accommodations have to be reasonable. And for a small business, depends on what reasonable is to you as a small business owner. So again, a job description can be really helpful to you. And I do see a lot of smaller businesses, even medium-sized businesses that don't have them. And I would highly recommend having a good job description for your positions. We also will perform compliance audits. A lot of those are related to I-9s. So I-9s are something that even when I've gone to organizations where they have had HR professionals, because we have worked with other clients that have HR staff in place, and they want a compliance audit because their current staff doesn't have time to do it. And I'm always surprised how many times I-9s are completed incorrectly. Now, depending on the size of your business and the type of your business, you may be at low risk for ever being audited, but I will tell you, you don't want to be audited. When I got into HR way back in the early 90s, I worked for a restaurant company, and we were audited often because restaurant business was certainly something, especially back in the early 90s, that was a hot button, and we were audited regularly. So I-9 is something that I know well, and we can go in and help you ensure that you're compliant with that. And if you're not, then we know exactly what to do to get you compliant. We can also complete some audits on your personnel files. Again, we do have on our, as I mentioned on our website, there's a resource button with a link and talks about some of your requirements for record keeping and personnel files. And there are very specific requirements that, and it's very simple, something that we can come in, get set up for you, and you can take it from there. So again, any type of compliance audits, even your current HR practices, we can look at. Something else we can help with, your unemployment claims. Again, we hope to help you prevent getting unemployment claims, but certainly if you find yourself in a situation with an unemployment claim, you're not sure how to handle it, we can help you. Same thing with layoffs, discharges, even helping with the disciplinary process. And we can help you via Zoom. We certainly go on site and help that way. Layoffs can be very tricky, as well as discharges. And you want to be sure that you are being fair to your employee, but also doing what you need to do to protect your business. So that's where we can come in and help you get that set up, advise you on the best way to handle the situation, even again, come on site, help you with conversations or even have the conversations for you. Recently, we went into clients and helped them with their performance reviews because they had never done performance reviews. And we helped them through that process, helped come up with a plan of action after having meetings with the staff. And again, we're talking just a handful of staff, so you don't have to be a large organization. But these are all things that we can help, among many other things. Training is another that we can help with if you need that as well. Pricing, I'll just cover basic. That's really not, it's really based on what you need, but we have project pricing. Sometimes it's much more cost effective for you, for us to say, hey, we'll just do this for a flat fee versus an hourly fee. The best part about our services is that you're not signing up for a long-term pricey contract. You're not paying several $100s for service a month for services you might not need or use. And we do provide free consultations. So, and I'd also put on our website, I think, for anyone here at the Small Business Expo, if you do reach out to us, just let us know, hey, saw you at the Small Business Expo, we will give a 10% off on all of our services. This slide does have our email address, our phone number, our website. Again, look at the resource page. There's not a lot there right now, but it does help you for the small business owner for some basic resources that you might need. We also have a LinkedIn page, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We have a couple videos on our Expo booth. Sorry, my mind went blank for a second. Please watch those. Those are very helpful too. And so I will go to questions. My partner here has handed me a question. So Joe wanted comment on issues with remote employees returning to work. So OSHA has a 34-page guidance on returning to work. I actually read it yesterday. And basically it depends on what you want to do is based on whether you're considered in high risk or low, medium, low risk and such. So I have a client right now, and the client's fortunate enough, we're an essential business. They've been able to remain fully staffed. Everyone has worked from home. And the owner has really taken the approach of, we're not going to force anyone to come back right now. As you know, there's a lot of people concerned about have another spike in fall. But I will say, And I do have this on the resource page. There are several links for the COVID returning to work, specifically links. So I would highly recommend you look at those. This particular industry is a low risk because they don't have customers that come in. They're basically a technology company. They do have a help desk, however. And so with the help desk folks, the few people that are coming in, they are maintaining the 6-foot social distancing requirement. They they do have masks, hand sanitizer. They've shut down some of the common areas or eliminated or limited the use to maybe one person in the break room at once. There's been a lot of guidance depending on the type of business you have, if the type of requirements that OSHA has. So please look at the resource page on our website and you will see those. But I would say my advice, and I have been on multiple webinars with the attorney that we partner with, and the guidance is, if you can keep people working from home, as long as you can do that. If you're going to have people return to work, ensure that you don't have everyone at the same time, all taking the same breaks, taking the same lunches. You want to try to spread that out. Again, adhere to that 6-foot, if at all possible. You want to look at maybe eliminating the use of your coffee machine and your water machine, and maybe eliminating the use of any common areas. The common areas are the key that we've seen in a lot of the guidance that we've gotten from the attorneys. And again, if the biggest focus, even on the OSHA website, you'll see is being flexible. The more flexible you can be with your staff returning to work, especially if they are at high risk, someone in their family is high risk, those are things that you want to look at. What we are also doing with our employees that are coming in to the office, which are few for that client, is we are having them certify every day that they do not have a temperature, that they have not recently been tested positive or have been around anyone in their family that's tested positive. We also ask if they've traveled to a hotspot. In Texas, we're right next to Louisiana, which has been a hotspot, and we do ensure that they also are not showing any current symptoms. So if you are going to bring people back, also consider that checklist of certifying that they aren't currently showing symptoms. So those are things I would look at before you have those remote workers return to work, because there is no such thing as zero risk. This client I'm talking about, the owner wanted to know, how do I have zero risk? Well, you don't. The only way to have zero risk is continue to let people work from home. But you can mitigate your risk by following all of the requirements that OSHA has. The lower risk businesses don't have as many as the requirements as your medium and high risk companies do. Is there any other questions? I guess I can go to the Q&A. Technical challenges here. Let's see. Do you have advice on independent contractors in the healthcare sector as far as the COVID exposure? I'm sorry? Oh. I'm sorry. I'm working with my partner here who is helping me answer some of the Q&A, and he is a healthcare expert, I will tell you. So I'm glad that he's there to answer some of the questions. I do have handouts that are available, which really just kind of talk about our services. Like I said, if you want some more COVID information other than what we have on our resource tab, let me know. As I mentioned, I have been on multiple webinars with our employment attorney. Our employment attorney that we work with closely is actually based in Pennsylvania. So it's not just Texas law, which can be a little different than other states. So we're certainly happy to help you come up with a plan. You will see that the very first thing the OSHA requirements talk about is having a good plan in place, and a plan in place if someone does get sick, which if at all possible, if someone does get sick, you want to isolate them, or if you can have them work from home. But there's just a number of things that they have recommended, and I would certainly look to those guidelines, ensure that you're following those guidelines. For higher risk, they also have certain requirements on disinfectants, ensuring that your disinfectants meet EPA guidelines. So there is a lot. The higher risk, of course, you're going to want to provide masks to your staff. You're going to want to have plastic shields up. You're going to want to have a lot more in place than maybe your lower risk environments. Yeah, the independent contractor, you're really going to want to treat your independent contractors as your employees. So you're going to want to have the same protections in place. And I know that I believe there was a question on one of the webinars on potentially an independent contractor or one of your staff going to a client. If you have to go on site and the client that you're going to wants to ensure your employee is not sick, that's where that certification every single day is really critical. Even again for your independent contractors, because if they're coming on your work site, even as an independent contractor, you need to ensure that the workplace is safe and that you have these protections in place. Same thing if they are going to one of your clients, one of your customers, you're going to want to ensure their facility is safe as well as your employee. So there's a lot to consider depending on your business. There's a lot to consider before you start bringing your employees back into the workplace, and also sending your employees out if they are going to one of your customers on site. So, and there has been some guidance, and it changes daily. There's been updates on all these laws almost daily. So it is important to stay on top of that. And certainly that's something we can help you with, or your own HR or employment attorney can help you with too. Let's see, is there any other? I think that's about it. Any other questions? The contractors, healthcare. All right. Well, I think that we are done. I really appreciate everyone today. And again, if there's anything that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to shoot us an email or give us a call. We do have live chat on our website as well. So please reach out if there's anything we can do. And I hope everyone has a great day and enjoys the rest of the Small Business Expo. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. We really enjoyed that presentation. Again, I want to thank AT&T Business for being our presenting sponsor for today. This webinar's recording will be available within 24 hours. You all will get an email notification when it's available. It will be available on smallbusinessuniversity.online. Thank you all for joining, and stay safe.